So hello everyone, thanks for being here. My name is Boyun, and today I'll give a presentation with the title of the predictability of emotional labor on emotional exhaustion and job satisfaction among physical education teachers in South Korea. I conducted this research with Dr. Yehun Lee and Dr. Hyungil Kwon. As you can see here, the primary researcher for this project is Dr. Yehun Lee, but he is kind of busy taking care of his newborn baby right now, so he couldn't be here. So on behalf of him, I'll give a presentation, but he is the expert of emotional labor, not me. First question you may have is why studying PE teachers? Because you might think, what does it have to do really with sport management? A lot of countries actually in the school system, they have their own athletic department that manages and runs the overall athletic programs. But unlike those countries, in South Korea, the key stakeholders of interscholastic sports is physical education teachers. So mainly what they do is not only they teach PE classes, but they also coach different sports teams within the school. So according to Ha et al., there are 4 major functions PE teachers performs in that school system. So the first one is primarily their primary function is teaching PE classes. So they teach classes. And then second role is coaching sports teams. So although this is not really mandatory for all the PE teachers to coach different sports teams, many of them do for 2 reasons. One, because there is no one else to do it, so they're kind of forced into the position regardless their intention. And 2, they do so because it's really highly linked to their promotion system. So even though a lot of PE teachers, they may not be the head coach in the system, but somehow they perform an assistant coach role if they're not the head coach. So they're somehow involved with coaching different sports teams. And the other roles they also perform is managing student athletes overall and running high school athletic departments, getting involved with budgeting, planning travels, maintaining competitive athletic programs, and developing student athletes. So what happens when you have so many responsibilities? So those teachers, they have to wear different hats throughout the day. So they're a teacher, they're a coach, and they're also an administrator for those athletic programs. So when you experience all those responsibilities throughout the day, then they may feel stressed and they may feel burnout. So because of all those negative impact it has, we decided to study PE teachers in South Korea. One of the variables that's frequently discussed in relation with stress, job attitude, job outcomes, and employees' well-being is emotional labor. So emotional labor is defined as the process of both regulating and expressing emotions when interacting with customers in order to be effective on the job. So this is actually the term that's used a lot in service industry. And those employees who work in the service industry, they are kind of required to produce and express job-specific, job-appropriate emotions when they're in contact with the customers. So they are engaged in emotional labor. And one of the groups that are said to perform high level of emotional labor is PE teachers for 4 reasons. So 1, weakened teachers' authority. So this may be seen a lot throughout the world, but there was those days, old days. There is a old Korean proverb saying that you're not gonna even step over your teacher's shadow, but those days are long gone now. So in fact, if according to the national survey, they say that a lot of PE teachers, about 2/3 of the PE teachers actually have experienced some disrespectful behaviors by their students. Therefore, they have some intention to leave the position within a year or two. So it's kind of a phenomenon that goes on nowadays in South Korea, that they feel great kind of like weakened teachers' authority. And not helping with the situation, the Korean government just issued something called Student Rights Ordinance. What that is they actually forbid all the teachers from any corporal punishment. So they cannot really punish any students for any reasons. And high level of social media usage. So with the technology, that doesn't really help the situation, because what students have done recently is they would record a scene where the teachers would get really angry and they reacted, and they post and share it in different channels of social media. And when a lot of people watch those video footage, then they develop some adverse feelings towards the teachers. So you will hear a lot of times the teachers not behaving appropriately because you're seeing this small segment of what really goes in. And some of the unique environment that those PE teachers experience, that is in comparison with the regular teachers, because in regular teaching setting, they're in a classroom, so they're not really exposed to anybody else besides the students. But in PE setting, or when you're coaching different sports, you are in an open area. So not only your student or your student athlete, but some parents can actually see how you're working. Your principals may see it, or any outsiders can go by the area, and then they can actually see how you're performing your work. So those kind of situations put PE teachers in a situation where they might have to fake the emotion, or they might have to express untrue feelings. So they will really experiencing emotional labor. So the 4 forms of emotional labor we included in the study involves surface acting, deep acting, genuine positive expression, and genuine negative expression. So the first 2, surface acting and deep acting, are the original form of emotional labor. So surface acting refers to modifying outward display without changing inner feelings. So you all probably have this situation. You're really angry inside, but you kind of have to smile and then give that fake expression to people for various reasons. So that is called surface acting. On the other hand, deep acting refers to actually genuine feelings, but they're trying to modify their feelings to their desirable situations. So for example, if I'm really angry, rather than faking my feeling and just smiling to the other people, what I would do is I go through some modification process of my emotions. So maybe I can calm myself down and try to feel in a certain way. So I try to modify my feelings, and then my feeling truly becomes better through the modification process. And what I express to the other people is actually a genuine feeling, but I have to go through the modification process. And later, Ashforth and Himfrey, those 2 scholars actually thought the 2 types, surface acting and deep acting, are not sufficient enough to cover the comprehensiveness of emotional labor. So they came up with another dimension that's called the genuine expression. And it is kind of divided into genuine positive expression and genuine negative expression. So the difference between those genuine expression and deep acting is both of them actually involved the genuine feeling, but unlike deep acting that you have to go through modification process, genuine expression, you do it kind of in an automatic way. So what happens is you're so trained in a way that there is a certain desirable emotions that you want to display, and it just happens automatic way. So those 2 new forms were added later. So in this study, we included those 4 forms of emotional labor. So the consequences of emotional labor we included are emotional exhaustion and job satisfaction. So emotional exhaustion is defined as a feeling that one's emotional resources are depleted. So when you think about surface acting, the previous research shows that because when you have to fake your own emotion, it's kind of draining you out. So you will experience emotional exhaustion. So we hypothesize that surface acting will lead to emotional exhaustion. In terms of deep acting, also the previous research showed that during the modification process of your feelings, you kind of have to use a lot of emotional resources that you have within yourself. Therefore, it's also highly associated with emotional exhaustion. In terms of genuine expression, there is actually very little evidence so far. I mean, there are some research, but it hasn't been really intensively studied yet. But with the limitation support we have, we also hypothesize that those genuine expressions would also relate it to emotional exhaustion. And also job satisfaction, which is defined as a pleasurable or positive mental state resulting from the appraisal of one's job or job experience based on the previous work. And I'm not going to get into details of all those different past work, but they support that there is a clear link between those 4 forms of emotional labor and job satisfaction. So the purpose of the study was to examine the relationship among the 4 different facets of emotional labor, emotional exhaustion, and job satisfaction among Korean physical education teachers. And as you can see, the different and Korean part, the word broke, but I'm so technologically behind. I don't know how to fix it, so I just left it as it is. So excuse my technological skills. So this is the proposed model that we use. So 4 forms of emotional labor will all lead to emotional exhaustion and job satisfaction. So for the methods of this study, the participants were 225 full-time PE teachers from 12 different middle schools in Seoul and vicinity. So the researchers actually went to those schools and hand-distributed these questionnaires to the PE teachers and collected them. And of the participants, 161 of them were males and 63 of them were females. And this is a kind of good representation of the overall PE teachers in South Korea, because according to the Ministry of Culture, Sports, and Tourism, the South Korean teachers, like gender ratio is about 80 to 20. So this kind of mirrors where they're at. And the average age of those participants were 32.4 years old with the range of 20 to 62. And job tenure, the average job tenure was 12.33 years, but it ranged from 1 year to all the way to 34 years. In order to collect data, we used this questionnaire, as I mentioned before, and emotional labor scale was measured, surface acting and deep acting were measured by emotional labor scale, and those scales were kind of modified in a way to fit into PE settings. And genuine positive expression and genuine negative expression were measured by discrete emotional labor scale. The original scale actually had 7 items in each category, like 7 genuine positive expression and 7 genuine negative expression. But with a panel of experts, which consists of 2 pedagogy professors, 1 sport management professor, and 2 really experienced PE teachers, they thought 3 items from each category really did not fit into PE settings, so we dropped those 3 items. And emotional exhaustion was measured by Maslach burnout inventory, and job satisfaction was measured by job satisfaction subscale of Michigan Organizational Assessment Questionnaire. So all those questions or items were measured using 5-point Likert scale. So for data analysis, we calculated some descriptive statistics, and we estimated reliability using SPS 22. And the normality of the data was also checked using kurtosis and skewness. And then confirmatory factor analysis was conducted to look at the measurement model, and structural equation modeling was followed to look at the structural relationship among those variables in the study. So those are some of the results of descriptive statistics and those alpha coefficient. In this table, you can see on the very top diagonal way, those are alpha coefficient, and they're all like above 0.70 with an exception of genuine negative expression, like which is 0.69, close enough to 0.70. And if you look at the correlations among the variables, none of them exceed the value of 0.85. So their discriminant validity is established there. And you can actually take a look at the mean score, standard deviation, skewness, and kurtosis there. And AV value is presented at the very bottom. They all exceeded 0.50 with an exception of surface acting again. But because that's one of the main construct we have. And also a lot of researchers in the past, when they're close to like 0.50, they actually did not drop the construct. So we decided to just retain that. The result of the confirmatory factor analysis showed that the model fit closely. So as you can see, chi-square divided by degrees of freedom is 1.9, and RMSE value is 0.049, and NFI, TLI, CFI values all above 0.90. And the structural equation modeling result also showed that the model fit was pretty good. So again, the number kind of all explains itself that the data fit very well. And by looking at the individual structural relationship among the variable. So in terms of four forms of emotional labor and emotional exhaustion, as you can see here, surface acting and genuine negative expression both show the significant and positive relationship with emotional exhaustion, whereas genuine positive expression has a significant and negative relationship with emotional exhaustion. So those were all as expected, except deep acting and emotional exhaustion. It did not really have any significant relationship. With the four forms of emotional labor and job satisfaction, also deep acting and genuine positive expression were positively and significantly related to job satisfaction, whereas genuine negative expression was significantly and negatively related to job satisfaction, but different from our expectations, surface acting and job satisfaction was not really related at all. So two outcomes that I want to just point out is some of the unexpected outcomes. So if you look at the first one, so deep acting did not really lead to emotional exhaustion. So according to Liu et al., employees utilize substantial amount of mental energy when they're attempting to change inner feelings. So using that explanation in a way that we thought surface deep acting would lead to emotional exhaustion, but it didn't happen that way. And one of the possible explanations could come from Ditch and Lee, and according to them, deep acting reduces emotional dissonance and elicits a feeling of authenticity. So there is because what they're expressing is a true feeling, therefore the emotional exhaustion doesn't really happen. That could be some possible explanation. And in terms of the relationship between surface acting and job satisfaction, One of the explanation we could think of was the possible relationship between teachers' expressed emotions and student outcomes. In coaching setting and in teaching, like physical activity setting, a lot of times those coaches and teachers use kind of strict faces and everything, and that makes students work harder in a way. So it's surface acting in a way, but it's making them work harder. And at the same time, and it kind of leads to a higher performance. And the coach and PE teachers' satisfaction may heavily rely on the performance rather than their emotion itself. So some implications. So it provides valuable information on the impact of emotional labor on PE teachers' well-being and job attitude, which leads to organizational effectiveness. And it also enlightens the administrators on emotional labor intervention programs, because according to the past scholars, what they say is those emotional labor is something that can be developed and trained over time. So once they're trained on how to control their emotion, it can help PE teachers identify health beneficial coping strategies. So future studies should replicate the study in other service industry in sports management, because sports management is heavily service-oriented industry, and there are really not that many research that focus on emotional labor. So we should really study this topic more in the other industry. And also mediating role of emotional exhaustion. Past literature suggests that the link between 4 forms of emotional labor and job satisfaction may be mediated by the role of emotional exhaustion. So studying the mediating role might be important. And also looking into moderating roles of situational determinants such as job autonomy, perceived social support, and excessive workload might be beneficial as well. So I ran out of time, and thank you.